and welcome to today's tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll set up two Cisco 29 switches along with two PCs. The setup involves assigning host names, IP addresses, implementing password protection to restrict device access. I'll save running configurations and finally test the connections between the two end nodes. I'll go step by step using the requirements listed, and I'll use the address table that I've created. Let's get started. I'll be using Cisco's Packet Tracer, a network and simulation program that allows you to create virtual networks with routers, switches, and other network devices as seen here. You can connect and configure these devices to simulate the behavior of a real network environment. Put up the address table and the requirements so we can follow along with it. I'll set out two switches and PCs, and let's name all these devices. I'll configure the host names using iOS a bit later. I'll name the first PC Bob_PC, the next John_PC, and the first switch HR_switch, the second Sales_switch. This is a simple visual to keep track of each device. I'll rename the switches through the CLI further in the video. Through Cisco's Packet Tracer, you could go directly to the switch, open the CLI tab, and configure each switch from there. However, in this video, I'll be connecting a console cable from the PCs using the terminal similar to a putty session. This is closer to a real-life setup. Click Connections, then in the sub-panel, select the console. Click the PC. That'll bring up the available connections. Select RS-232, then drag the connection to the switch. Once you click on the switch, that'll bring up your options for that switch. We have a console port and 24 fast Ethernet ports and 2 gigabit Ethernet ports. Select the console port and we'll repeat the same process with the Sales switch and John's PC. Next, selecting a straight through cable, I'll make a connection from the switch to switch using the fast Ethernet port 01 from each switch. From the HR switch, I'll make a connection from fast Ethernet 02 to Bob's PC using fast Ethernet 0 on Bob's PC. I'll repeat that process from the Sales switch to John's PC. Let's just tidy everything up and make it look nice and even here. Next, I'll select Bob's PC. I like keeping my terminal windows on top, so I'll check the top option to ensure that it stays there. Next, I'll select the desktop tab, then terminal configurations. Make sure your terminal configurations mirror mine and click OK. This will give you access to the HR switch command line interface or CLI. I'll repeat the process for the Sales switch, and I'll display the address table and the requirements to follow along. We now have CLI access through the console on both switches. I'll begin by typing EN for enable. That will give us access to the enable prompt or EN prompt. Next, enter config T for configure terminal. This will take us to the config prompt. Next, type do sh_run for do show run. This will display the running config of the switch. As you can see, the host name is set to switch by default. Now let's go over to Bob's PC and repeat the same commands. We'll begin by typing EN for enable, then config T to enter the configuration prompt. From here, we can type hostname followed by whatever you've decided to name the switch. In this case, HR_switch. As you can see, the prompt will go from switch to HR_switch. Now let's repeat the process on the Sales switch. Next, we will configure the enable mode password. In the config prompt, enter enable password followed by whatever password you would like to use. In my case, I'm using enable with capital E. We will now test that password by completely exiting. To enter the switch again, type in EN, and you will now notice that the switch is requesting a password to proceed. You can also type show run or sh_run to check the password in the running config file. We can also verify the switch name here. You can also check that there is no IP address, line con 0 password, or VTY password set. So let's go configure those. But before I do that, I will configure the enable mode password on the HR switch. Next, let's configure the line console 0 password. Type line con 0 and press enter. In the config line prompt, type password followed by the password you would like to set. In this case, it's console with a capital C. Then hit enter. Next, type login and then exit. Exit 3 times to completely exit out. Now, if you hit enter, the switch will immediately request a password to access the line console, as well as the enable mode password. Let's now go over to the sales switch and configure the line con 0 password as well. Type sh run to display the running configuration, and we can verify the host name, which is sales_switch. The enable mode password is set, and the line con 0 password is set as well. Next, we'll set the VTY04 password. We'll begin with the HR switch. First, go to the config T prompt and then type line VTY0 space 4. Hit return and type password followed by the password you will use. In my case, it's VTY04. Obviously, in a real world scenario, you need to implement more complex passwords. I'm keeping it simple for this video. Next, type in login and hit enter. Now let's go over to the sales switch and repeat this process. Config T, line VT04, password followed by the password, exit, and show run to see the running configuration. I'll verify the VTY04 password on both switches through the running config file. Okay, let's go back to the requirements and check off what we've completed so far. So far we've used the console connection to access each switch. We've named both switches, one HR and one sales switch. We've configured the line con 0 password, and we've set the enable mode password as well. So we'll put some thumbs up emojis on there. And let's continue with encrypting all clear text passwords. I'll begin with the HR switch, and we'll need to get to the config prompt. From there, type service password-encryption. Then exit once and type show run. You will now notice all passwords that we set earlier are encrypted. I'll now repeat the same process on the sales switch. Now let's go set the message of the day banner, or MOTD. We'll go to the config prompt, then type banner MOTD followed by the £sign. Note that the £sign indicates the beginning of the message. Anything typed after will be part of the message. The only exception is you can't use the £sign because it'll indicate the end of your message as well. You'll see as I go through the steps. I'm going to be using no unauthorized access as my message of the day, with asterisk on top and on bottom to give a visual like a banner. Make sure you have the pound at the end of your message indicating the end. Type exit and WR for write memory. Exit once more and you will notice the MOTD is set. Let's go over to the sales switch and perform the same process. Since we've now configured quite a bit on both switches, this would be a good point to save the running config file to the NVRAM of the switch. Let's go to the config prompt and type copy running-config startup-config. The running config is the source, the startup config is the destination. And let's move over to the sales switch and repeat the process. Let's go back to our requirements and see where we're at. Okay, so far we've used the console connection to access each switch. We've named both switches. We've set the passwords for linecon0 and the enable mode password. We've encrypted all passwords and we've configured the message of the day. Next, we'll be configuring the address of the devices, including the PCs according to the address table listed. Let's continue. Getting back to the config prompt, type init VLAN1 for interface VLAN1. Next, type IP address followed by the IPv4 address and the submask. In this case, it'll be 172.16.100.10 space 255.255.0.0. Exit and show run to view the running config. You can now see the IPv4 has been set along with the submask. We also need to enable the interface, so let's go back to interface VLAN1 and type no shutdown. The switch is now ready to allow traffic to flow through. And we'll do a show run to view the running config. If we go to the config if prompt, you can type do ship init br to see the status of all the ports on the switch. I find this command very handy. Now let's set the IP address and submask and enable the interface. Do a do show IP init br, you'll now notice that the port is up and the IP address is assigned. We've now completed the configuration of both switches. Let's move on to the PCs, beginning with John's PC. I'll exit back to the desktop and select the IP configurations widget. There, we can configure the IP address and submask for the PC. In this case, it'll be 172.16.100.30 with a submask of 255.255.0.0. Let's repeat the process on Bob's PC. Bob's PC will have an IP address of 172.16.100.30. Okay, it looks like I got my numbers confused, so I'll go back to John's PC and fix his. John's PC should have a 172.16.100.35 and Bob's PC will have a .30 as shown in the address table. Okay, now let's go to Bob's PC, open the command prompt and ping John's PC to see if it replies. And there you go, it's replying. Now let's do it vice versa and ping Bob's PC from John's PC. And there you go, traffic's flowing through. That completes this tutorial, and thank you for following along and keep on keeping on.